Hello and welcome to this video in which I will synthesize some of my critiques of Andy in a single short video because uh, it takes like 1 second to say something that's not true. But to show that's not true, you need to spend 1 hour. Uh, so this is maybe a ratio that's a little bit exaggerated these days, but uh, it's much more easier to say whatever one things without showing evidence than the effort of scholarship. And since that is my business, uh, the same way that a plumber has his, I don't pretend any elitism. I'm going to correct some untruths that Andy, our favorite drummer YouTuber, Prog is hard to swallow, but let's say he could be a very good jazz rock drummer if he stopped doing prog. Says repeatedly, one is the proud in his nationality. I understand. We all love in Europe and other places the music that comes from the UK. It's one of the most musical countries in the world. Uh, of course, its empire, its link to the United States helps into the dissemination of its music. But anyway, it's a very musical country. I would say the other that comes to mind that's as musical is Brazil. But on the other hand, the British Empire has a lot of darkness, and before uh, being so nationalistic, I think it's important to be a little bit humble. Let's say, for example, the number of deaths that were perpetrated by the UK Empire during the 2 centuries of domination of the world before the US took over. All empires have a surge and then they decline, and it has always happened. So there are direct violences, and then there are indirect violences, like not doing something that could be helpful for people who are in risk of death. And it's a combination of both. So normally the most common is the indirect passive violence. For example, conquering a country and not doing anything for them, not letting them decide in their future, uh, develop or stop their development. Like one could say the British Empire did in India, which at the time of the conquest had a superior textile industry. So I would like to. There is some difficulty in the assessment of the numbers because there are acts of violence like engineered famines, food that's diverted for colonial profit, and that creates famines and a lot of death. Forced labor, like say in railways or rubber plantations, and disease in concentration camps, or reservations, and the violence of suppression of anti-colonial protests. Then there are incomplete records of the colonial power, of course, hides many of the deaths. And also, there are demographic gaps comparing for comparison of counterfactuals, considering what is the pre-colonial population and what would be if the British had not conquered the country. And I'll show you just a few examples. That's not exhaustive. So, for example, the death toll in India between 1757 and 1947, more or less, there is the Great Bengal Famine of 1769 that counted 10 million deaths, mostly due to the British East India Company that taxed farmers during the drought. There was the late Victorian famines that occurred between 1878 or 6 and 1902 that are between 15 and 30 million deaths. The grain was exported to Britain as millions starved, policies critiqued by Mike Davis in the later Victorian Holocaust. So there is more. The Bengal famine of 1943, which the number of deaths were not as high as the late Victorian of 15, 30 million, were 2.1 and 3.8 million. It's still a large number of people that died. Of course, here we can be sure that Churchill did it with gusto, since we know what he did in the Middle East. So Churchill diverted food to troops with ships full of grain and left Bengal for Europe. Then there is the deaths that were attributed to the suppression of political revolts against this situation of colonialism. Then the 1857 rebellion counted between 800,000 and 1 million executed individuals. Then the Jallianwala Bagh of 1919 that was a massacre of 1,500. And if we make a total for India, without being conservatives, is about 60 million in deaths due to famines alone. Okay, so let's go for the second example, which is Kenya between 1895 and 1960. Empires as large as the British, that's probably the largest that the world has known in terms of ownership, occupation of land, uh, are slow to die. And look at the contradictions of many British persons that would reject um, such acts and still have an allegiance to the Queen or the King, which are feudal remnants, and live out of mostly of the um, uh, not for their independent wealth, which they also can accrue or remain in their hands, but from the uh, public budget that that pays for their lifestyle. It's a symbol that seems to be anachronic. Well, and not only me, of course. So in Kenya, the Mau Mau uprising of 1952 until 1960, with the liberation and the independence, counted 20,000 executed by the British forces, about 160,000 detaining camps and died for torture, starvation, and disease. 1.2 million Kikuyu forced into concentration villages, and land disposition, which created deaths from displacement related famines, disease in the early 1900s. Which there is not a great estimate, but it's still significant. Another example would be, the grand famine of 1 million dead in Ireland. I mean, colonizing a European country. Africa is another region. Australia is another region. All these occupations generated deaths from dispossession and also from wars with local population, such as the 60,000 Aboriginal deaths in Australia. So a conservative total estimate would be, if we had India, famines and violence, Ireland, famine, Kenya, the Mau Mau rebellion, Australia, the frontier wars with the locals, and Africa and Southeast Asia, uh, which were millions, but of difficult quantification for the problems that I said before. We have a total low estimate of between 100 and 150 million deaths. So, I mean, I would say that Andy should curb his enthusiasm. And when there is members of this country that, due to, say, global warming or other reason, want to come to the UK, I would think twice before expelling them, since there have not been any kind of reparation. So, in the analysis of the way he looks at middle class, this Glastonbury Yes, I agree overall, but concentration on posh middle class is a misguided objective. It's an easy target because the majority are just a little bit wealthier, and maybe or not, they are, as Andy says, middle class. Uh, so these individuals, maybe, yes, maybe they focus on international issues. They don't understand the troubles of the working class who voted for Brexit. Uh, yes, but I would not target somebody like Corbyn and only attack the Labour camp and leave Boris Johnson like um, kind of a funny fellow and reserve all the vitriol for the Labour. It's clear that this hatred of the left uh, is a right wing rhetoric, because as Margaret Thatcher said, after herself there was no more left. That was her most important political achievement. She created New Labour. She was asked, and it's on record, what is your major accomplishment? And her answer was Blair, of course. And so attacking socialist is not appropriate. It's like one would go to the Democratic Republic of Congo and beginning to attack democracy. And maybe there is some, but democracy is in retreat all over. But is not true. These individuals are not socialist, the majority. And the one that Andy targets, Corbyn, it's unfair to attack him. Maybe he made a mistake politically, but he cannot be accused of being a Bosch. He was born to a middle class family in Wiltshire, more from parents that were peace activists, and one was an electrician, and the mother was a math teacher, but not at the university, as I understand. I may make a mistake, but that's was my record. And he attended grammar school, and he worked as a trade union organizer and as a journalist, and he did manual labor too. That doesn't look Oxbridge type of persons like Blair. And he was a champion of, even if he was himself middle class, but not upper middle class, more lower or middle class. He had a loyalty to the working class. Middle class is just working class with a little bit of money, more money. So his policy agenda was anti-austerity, opposed to cuts to welfare, housing and public services, worker rights, that push for stronger unions, for higher minimum wage, for worker ownership, for nationalization, uh, renationalization, to undo what had been done with the rail, mail, and utilities and bringing them back to public hands. The whole world knows the disaster of the privatization of the mail in the UK. I recommend people to look at one film of no Mike Lake, John. Well, the one who did Daniel Blake. Anyway, the name will come. So then he did a lot of street activism. His lifestyle is a modest apartment in Islington that he has kept since 1984. He cycles everywhere since a long time ago. He consistently fought against New Labour until he was expelled. For example, opposing the Iraq War, that everybody said that what Blair maintained was not true. And for lower tuition fees and welfare cuts, he fought against that. And for for lower tuition fees. And that costly and will costly his position in the parliament, his job, for sure, because there's been gentrification. So his constituency now is a little more, I imagine, New Labour. So I bet he will lose his seat. I don't know the extent of gentrification of what's the area, Islington, but that could happen. So he's very consistent. People accuse him to be rigid, but the kind of flexibility of Blair, Brown, and Stammer certainly doesn't help the average working family in Britain. And then his grassroots campaigns tied to the unions, to the miners' groups, to the anti-racist movements since the 70s. He hasn't stopped. His politics are one of class struggles against the elites. And he criticized the establishment, the tax dodging corporations, and the media oligarchs. Well, he takes on the most powerful individuals. His detractor accused him of course, with the typical of a champagne socialist and class disconnect, which could be true to a certain extent because his Islington constituency is more affluent and is distant from the industrial working class communities that have suffered during globalization. And uh, has had to focus on issues like immigration, wars abroad, more than the concrete bread and butter problems of the working class, the majority of British people. So he failed in the Brexit debate. Um, he maintained kind of an ambiguous stance, and he couldn't read well the level of anger of the working class. In spite of all he did was very consistent and with his ideology, and was not an elite person, but uh, that judgment there maybe was due to a certain distance from other constituencies than his own. So to to summarize, he had a low middle class origin. His path to power was through being a backbencher, grassroots movements and fights. He's extremely consistent with his ideology, and his criticism of uh, hypocrisy, I think, is exaggerated, because yes, his judgment with things like Brexit showed a certain disconnect with the working class, but given the work he has to do for his constituency, it's understandable. Although he's been very loyal to the cause of improving the life of the majority of the British people. And remember that in the US, the top 10% has 43% of the wealth, and the lower 50%, 10%, 43%, and lower 50% have 9% of the wealth. That's where the elite relies, in the top 10% that is very wealthy. The 40% other is the so-called middle classes, I would say, that have always a difficult allegiance. They can be very right-wing when they lose a lot of their status and money, or they can be more towards the left if there is movements from below, and the prospects of redistribution are very evident. So, I would say that the top 10%, 43, and the bottom 59% is something to remember. So the posh people are not the persons that Andy talks about. These are not the posh. The posh are people like Branson, who's associated somehow, I think, I read, I don't know if it's true or not, with Bramson, that may be a rumor. But of course, Prince, one of the princes of the royal family was, in any case. And the wealthiest persons are, it's Poetic Justice, an Indian family, the Gopi Hinduja and his family, with 53, I wrote it here, 5.3 billion, I think, or 53 billion pounds, yes. Industry, finance, energy. Then David Simon Reuben, about 26 billion. Sir Leonard Blavatnik, from, I imagine, Eastern European origin, if not Russian, 25 billion. Sir James Dyson and family, 20 billion. Eden Offer, Western family, Sir Jim Cliff, and Lakshmi Mittal and family. So these are the real powerful people, and the elite are those that surround them, which would be owners and top managers of high-end private banks, like the JP Morgan Private Bank or Lombard Odier, which is the favorite of the UK elite. The peer advisory networks, like Tiger 21, which is a global network for ultra high net wealth individuals and families that provide peer learning and discrete networking across 50 cities, including London. There is the elite in social and professional associations that's more prestige than money, something that Andy confuses you. Class is more about property, and status is more about prestige. And they correlate, but not as much as being able to substitute one for another. That would be the Oxbridge alumni clubs, the top tier golf and tennis and sailing and equestrian societies. These create informal networks, but it's what's called social capital. Then the philanthropic and cultural institutions that many of the wealthy elite serve on their boards, like the Tate, the Royal College of Arts, or high-profile university opportunities that they provide for visibility and influence. And then the business and industry roundtables, like the CBI, the London First, the Institute of Directors. These are ad hoc, high-level policy roundtables that foster exchange between wealthy leaders and governments, politicians. And well, that would be interesting to know what they do. So this is the elite, not the guy with a flag in Glastonbury. I mean, he's and on top, Andy says has no problem with the very wealthy. What kind of contrarian is that? That praises the wealthy and vilifies continuously the social democratic middle and upper middle class. I don't see that any contrarian or anti-system. This is a struggle between conservative and libertarian, all on the right. Or I'm a little bit harsh because there is also the issue of, well, but these individuals also are involved in charity, right? Instead of favoring government legislation that provides, say, housing as a right, they give some of their immense wealth to charity. That helps also for tax purposes. So I've seen it all. So you can see that Andy's analysis is completely off the mark. And I hope that it doesn't confuse persons with regard to the role of the nation historically and who is the elite in Britain and who he attacks as posh, which it's not that posh. Even if it were true that they are all hypocrites, and which I don't believe that everybody there would just be fake with actions that they may be understood as even illegal, with flags and things like that. Even if that were true, these individuals would not be the elite. I think that I demonstrated that very clearly. So, what does it mean, Andy's behavior? Well, he's an instrument of the right to attack the middle class left. Unfortunately, the middle class left tends to be middle or upper middle class because of the failure of the non socialist governments to improve their lot or understand their troubles. So at least the right gives them an answer. A flawed answer is the fault of the immigrants and blah, 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 instead of their policies. But the labor is not labor anymore. It's like a softer version of the conservatives, unfortunately. And that's why they kicked out Corbyn, who was representative a little bit more of the labor, who had real or heroes or real left governments or socialist, like, for example, the working class roots and actions that were loyal to their class. And that could happen with Keir Hardy in the beginning of the 20th century, who was born in Scotland, had in a one-room cottage and worked as a coal miner from the age of 10, was self-educated, and founded the Labour Party, with always acting in favor of unions, against child labor, and against imperialism. And that person is just the opposite of the Blairs and company. And was always dressed as a working class person. He never deviated from that. He said, my work has been not to raise up the rich, but to lift up the poor. Well, it's very simple, but it's very clear. And he showed it with his behavior. Also, Anurinai Bevan, who lived until 1960. He was the son of a Welsh coal miner, and was the architect of the National Health Services, of the National Health Service in 1948. That was the best administration in the history of the UK, in my opinion, and fought for the council housing and workers' rights, and remain a fierce critic of the elite. He said, we know what happens to people who stay in the middle of the road. They get run over. That's a great line, criticizing people who pretend to be apolitical. You can ignore politics, but politics won't ignore you. So you would be affected anyway, according to the class you belong to. And also Ellen Wilkinson died in 1947, who led the labor against unemployment, was a minister of education also in 1945, and implemented free school, and also raised the school living age, and never abandoned her socialist ideas. He said always, I'm on the side of the underdog, and show it with her behavior. And also Mary Shimo died in 1986, I believe. Her background was a Jewish immigrant family from London, and worked in the garment industry from the age of 12. She organized the 1926 general strike, nationalized coal miners as a minister for fuel. I'm sorry. And remained a firebrand all her life. Poverty is the worst form of violence. Now, that's true. That's true. And John Burns is another one that was the first working class cabinet minister in 1905, fought for the 8-hour work day and welfare reform, and refused a peerage, saying that he would die as he lived. So, and many others. So that was the real socialist UK political uh, UK politicians. But since Blair, those who have controlled the Labour Party are not like that. They are neoliberal. They accept the same economic measures and ideas that the conservatives. So in attacking the middle class, who goes to Glastonbury, it's a confusing act that makes working class individuals hate the wrong target. Even if it were true that they were hypocriticals, they would be just a little more wealthy than them. And in any case, is convenient for the right because they make the label socialist that's wrongly attached to New Labour to lose prestige. And it's also convenient to New Labour because although they are not socialist, it remains popular among sufficient large number of working class members due to the successes of the past, but not those of the current Labour. And that's it. So thank you for listening, and I hope that makes Andy recognize his terrible mistakes when it comes to these statements on these fields. Bye.